Is that ready to go?
Yep. And comes in next.
Okay, it's 1 o'clock. I'm going to call the July 5th Board of Commissioner meeting to order. We will start out with a prayer from Commissioner Wyatt and the pledge from Commissioner Heberlin.
Heavenly God, we thank you for the opportunity for this wonderful, gorgeous weather that we've experienced over the last week or more. We ask that you'd bring more rain on the crops that go to feed the American families that live in this county. We ask for your blessing on this proceedings moving forward. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Lori, could you perform roll call, please?
Commissioner John Black,
Present.
Commissioner Gary Heberlin,
present.
Commissioner Bill Sarkella,
Here.
Commissioner Roger Ballard,
Present.
Commissioner Joel Wyatt.
Here. Thank you. Moving on to additions, corrections, or deletions to today's agenda. If there are no additions or corrections, I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll make that motion to approve today's agenda.
We have a motion from Commissioner Heberlin, support from Commissioner Wyatt. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to our meeting minutes from June 7th. If there are no additions or corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Support. We have a motion from Commissioner Ballard, support from Commissioner Sarkella. Is there any discussion on the topic? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Correspondence, petitions and introductions. Your correspondence would have been received from Jody yesterday. So we will move into commissioner reports and we will start with Commissioner Sarkella.
I was able to attend Lexington Township along with the regular meeting, their budget hearing as well. They look really good financially, about a $475,000 in expenses, but they have certainly more than that in their budget report. Working on some rezoning, their master plan as well. And they were considering a food truck ordinance and then moving forward with their bike path in connection with Croswell. Croswell's got a lot going on if you've been down there looking at the construction in town. So bike path is there, but it's kind of taken a back seat to the sewer project. And then attended Village of Lexington. They looked at the library money, but they can't do that because they aren't allowed to give funds to a nonprofit. They've been doing a lot down there. They actually had to approve 4 meetings. So they've had a lot of things going on as they're moving forward. If anybody hasn't been down there, there's been some great improvements at the at the harbor. And they approved their budget as well. A public hearing on the DDA plan. They're going to be expanding their downtown district to allow them to get more funding that way. And other than that, they are moving along as well. And that's all I have.
Sure. Thank you, Bill. Gary?
One of the last township meetings I was to, and of course, I certainly townships again this week, but the Washington Township is having problems with the manure haulers and the roads, and they were going to get with the County Road Commission to see if they could put extra brine in and do something about that, because some of the people that have breathing problems that last for sometimes up to a week back and forth for their house. As I said, I got township meetings this week, and I've been, for whatever reason, attending lots of parades lately. End of my report.
Thank you, Gary. I myself had a conversation with Marion Township Supervisor related to some road issues. Help move that along. That is all I have. Roger?
I attended Flynn Township on the 14th of June, Buell on the 21st of June, Elk on the 22nd of June, Marlett Township on the 14th. The townships right now, they're all dealing with contracts with the road commission on as far as graveling and brine, and also ongoing blight issues, which are never ending and very costly. So they have to kind of step softly on those things. Village Peck, I attended their meeting on the 15th. They're probably about to start a street project over there with some ARPA funds. So that's it.
Very good. Thank you, Roger. Commissioner Wyatt?
Like Commissioner Block, I actually met with some constituents from a couple townships regarding some road issues that got taken care of. So that was good. And I've been meeting with a lot of constituents regarding the Liberty Wind Park, just hearing some of their concerns. And offering them an opportunity to connect with one another, I guess. So that's about it.
I think as you have brought up that Liberty Wind Park over the last year, and we look at now it's becoming contentious, it goes back to that concept of people being informed and making sure that they're reading the newspaper.
100%, really, I mean, there's a tremendous outpouring of frustration on the part of constituents who are saying that they were not notified, but truthfully, they were notified to the full extent of the law. At least that's the way it seems to me, if they're telling the truth with the publications and the paper of notification, and all that seems to be true. But yeah, I get it. We don't get the news very often. We don't read a physical paper anymore. And that's still the method in which public hearings are, notified and presented. You have an obligation as a taxpayer, a voter, a registered voter, to pay attention to those things. But then as an elected official, speaking as an elected official, it might be incumbent upon you to go above and beyond what the law requires and on the point of transparency to make sure that you are inclusive of all those people who darn well aren't reading newspapers, don't have the internet, or you don't have emails to communicate with them. You don't have their phone numbers to dial them up and say, hey, homeowner, XYZ, you should show up at this. So you got to think outside the box when it comes to being communicative with your communities. I think we as elected officials have to think outside the box on the best way to get our message out.
Good point. Thank you, Joel. At this time, Nathan, administrator's report.
Thank you. For anybody that didn't see, the state did, looks like after quite some time finalize their budget late Friday or early Friday, how we look at it. One of the things I did see, in addition to a lot of other money that's earmarked a few different ways, was an additional 1%. They're looking at revenue sharing, increasing that additional percent to counties. Won't be a huge increase, but it is a slight increase for us. I went over and toured the community mental health buildings, spent some time with Will Morris over there. He's really focusing on community programming, what can be done for the folks locally. He also expressed that he is very open to allowing for sharing of space as trainings are needed or there's any emergencies in the future, which was good to hear. So he's got some space over there and he's open to, he said as long as he's there, he's open to working with other community partners. So we're working on getting a contract finalized with the state for our landscaping and snow removal at the Michigan State Police Post. We've been doing that for years. However, we decided it might be time to look at getting a contract with them for the work that we do for them.
So it's in the early stages of that, because we've talked about that.
Yeah, she's the lady who's working on it has the contract. She just sent over something today. So I think
we couldn't do it earlier, if I understand, because of the budget, the yearly budget was that, I think that was.
Okay. And I don't know, where I came in,
Sure.
She was able to get some things together and she's going to get that over to us. So the generator's back up and running over at Dispatch, the OC building. So that's fully operable now. We're not working on that temporary generator.
Nick can leave Sandusky now.
Yes, he can now leave and not feel like he's tied down. And lastly, the county budget, we're going to begin working on that July 11th. We're going to open that up to department heads to begin working on that. So we'll start seeing where we're at with the county budget and what department heads are looking for. Go from there.
Okay. Thank you, Nathan. Any questions for Nathan? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to public comments pertaining to today's agenda. Are there any public comments pertaining to an agenda item?
The only thing I wanted to say is Brian is in the waiting room.
Okay, let's offer him an opportunity. It's Brian, correct?
Yep. Brian
And
Harrison.
then, yeah, if you can click on it, anything, yeah. And then,
Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, Brian, we have an opportunity for you to speak on this resolution during public comments pertaining to agenda items. You have 3 minutes if you have something you'd like to tell us.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, guys. My apologies for not being there in person today. My schedule obviously got moved around a little bit. Thank Christy for being there, and thank you guys for, again, having this on the agenda. Biggest thing that I think we just want to note is, please know that we're not here because of our company. We're not here because of advising. We're here truly because of the families and the patients that we're serving.
Well,
And those that
we worked Juneteenth, which I think
That is the 19th, not the 20th. The 20th is the day that.
Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
No, that's no problem. Yeah, so we're really here just drawing this awareness for the patients and the families that depend on us and depend on other home care companies to take care of them after they purchased insurance as a part of their auto insurance policy, and unfortunately have a need to use that insurance. As I think we've touched on in the past, we do not want to undo the vast majority of the reforms that were put in place by the state. We value the fact that people now can choose their coverage. Before, it used to be everybody had just unlimited, and regardless if you lived in state, had insurance, didn't have insurance, that's where things would fall, which did drive costs up. There were, again, prior to the reforms, a lack of accountabilities for hospitals and what they would charge and collect for services. And now we have that. And so those are things that we're very thankful that are in place to maintain this system of accountability and sustainability. But what we're advocating for is an awareness that because of through those reforms, unknowingly, the legislature, we believed unknowingly, we don't believe it was intentional. Again, put in a 45% reduction for services that relate to home health care, like what we provide. And again, home health care prior to the reforms was a industry competitive market service. And so we would charge the same thing. We would charge for a work accident, an auto accident, private pay, regardless of the need, regardless of insurance, it would be the same charge. And that rate has been dropped by 45%, which allows us just to no longer care for folks. And so what we're asking is just for the legislature to amend that part of the statute and so on and so forth, having counties like Saranac support that for the residents and for folks that have not only purchased policies in the past that are receiving care, but anyone that chooses to now purchase an unlimited policy in the future would in fact then have a network that they could call on should they, heaven forbid, need it. So that's really why we're here again today, and then gets to answer any questions on what we've experienced over the last 18 months as a part of the advocacy process in Lansing and what that's looked like and what the feedback's been. So.
Okay, well, we appreciate that, Brian. If we have questions when we reach that part in our agenda, we'll be sure to ask.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. And again, thanks for having us on your agenda and taking the time, and my apologies for not being there in person today again.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments pertaining to today's agenda? Hearing none, we will move on. We have a presentation from our Veterans Affairs Director, Shannon. Shannon, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you. I dropped off copies of the annual report ahead of time, hoping you guys had a chance to review. I don't go through the page by page stuff, just a couple key points that I'd like to bring to your attention, of course. Fiscal year 21, Sanilac County veterans were paid $14,012,000. It was an increase from the previous year of only $34,000, not as big of increase as we've seen over the past, but I guess an increase is still an increase. So, and I'd like to bring out to you guys, the veteran population in our county did go down by 232 veterans and dependents last fiscal year. It seems about every other year about that number, we go back and forth. The year before, we had an increase of about that many. We provided 315 veterans rides to their medical appointments last year. We opened up our transportation program recently to provide rides for all medical appointments and not just VA medical center appointments. The VA is providing community care appointments now and paying for those. So we're giving rides for all medical appointments for our San Juan County veterans.
Shannon, I don't want to cut you off, but what, was that last year that you increased that or created that opportunity for veterans?
Yes, yeah, we opened that up. And then lastly, we have an emergency assistance fund that we can help veterans in our county with any sort of emergent issue, and we paid $34,601 out to county veterans. Well, not actually to them, to different things that they requested help with, electric bills, roof repairs, vehicle repair, stuff like that.
Is there any consistent theme across the board for the expenditures emergency based that you saw?
The one I think it was like home repairs was the most requested this past year. Stuff that wasn't covered by like house insurance, home insurance.
So when you get a request for a home repair, you're essentially providing the funding source for it. Are you providing, like actually finding people to do the repairs as well?
They have to get bids from licensed contractors.
Gotcha.
And then we also like to provide them information of other agencies like the Human Development Commission that can provide weatherization, and we try to refer them out to other places as well, so we're not hit with the brunt of sometimes the whole cost.
Okay.
Shannon, you said that fluctuates 200 people every
Yeah.
year. What's the reason for
I
that?
have no idea.
People move out, move in.
250 something last year that it increased. And this year it's down 230, so I don't know.
Gotcha.
It
Okay.
seems to be a consistent
Just
number
curious.
back and forth.
Is that just those aren't necessarily permanent residency. Do they have to establish
It's
permanent
what the
residency?
Federal Department of Veterans Affairs contends, it's veterans and or dependents, and they have 1.7 dependents per veteran is their calculation. So that would be the total of veterans and dependents that they no longer think reside in our county.
That's it. Thanks, Jim.
Any further questions for Shannon?
Just a comment, very nice report. We appreciate all the work that you provide for our veterans.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're moving to interviews, and we have Rex Hazard here to interview for Sanilac Transportation. Rex, if you would. Welcome.
Thank you. I was approached by Paul Connolly and asked if I would consider being part of the transportation process. A lot of people know me, but I served in the Army for 3 years, 1 year in Korea. And then I came home and worked with a computer company out of Port Huron called Time Data for 8 years. And then I retired from Ford Motor Company with 30 years. So since I retired, just enjoying that. Grandfather lived in the area for 45 years. And I'm on the board of the Countryside Free Methodist Church. That's pretty much it.
You're part of the VFW too, correct?
Yeah, part of the VFW, and part of the American Legion.
Any questions for Rex? Okay, well, we appreciate your willingness to serve the community. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Moving on to appointments to standing committees, there are none. Commissioner appointments, there are none. Appointments to the Transportation Board, we have one applicant for a partial 4-year term expiring December 1st of 2024. There's one person. I'll entertain a motion to nominate and appoint Rex Hazard to that position.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Rex Hazard to that partial 4-year term expiring 12/1/24.
We have a motion from Commissioner
I'll
Heberlein,
support.
support from Commissioner Ballard. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Congratulations and thank you again. Okay, at this time, we're going to move on to general resolutions, and we have a resolution honoring Rhoda Mcvitty. If you'd like to come right up here, I will read this to you. So this is a resolution honoring Rhoda Mcvitty for years of service. Whereas Rhoda Mcvitty will retire from Sanilac County with over 37 years of dedicated service. And whereas Rhoda began her career in district court on January 14th, 1985 as a court recorder, and on January 1st, 2007 was promoted to community corrections coordinator, and then on May 28th, 2013 as district court probation officer. And whereas during her tenure, Rhoda has worked under the Honorable James A. Marcus and Honorable Gregory S. Ross. And whereas throughout her career as a public servant, Rhoda has provided excellent service and quality work in the office and courtrooms, and further gained the respect and admiration of her colleagues. And whereas upon retirement, Rhoda is looking forward to traveling with her husband Keith and spending time with family. And now therefore be it resolved, the Sanilac County Board of Commissioners by this resolution recognizes and commends Rhoda Mcvitty for her longstanding commitment to Sanilac County and its citizens. Be it further resolved that this resolution be presented to Rhoda Mcvitty and spread upon the proceedings of the Sanilac County Board of Commissioners this 5th day of July, 2022. Thank you for all your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rhoda.
Thanks, Rhoda. Congratulations on retirement.
Yes.
You'll love it.
Thank you, Roger.
I can't wait.
Rhoda, when I look out in this room, I see some faces that came here to support you, and it's awful meaningful to have someone that served the community so well. So thank you for your service.
And Rhoda, don't forget, there's boards of a variety that you can always serve on.
I'll keep that in mind.
Okay, so I have made a motion for the resolution honoring Rhoda Mcvitty. I'll entertain support.
Support.
We have support from Commissioner Ballard. Lori, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Black,
Yes.
Commissioner Sarcella,
Yes.
Commissioner Ballard,
Yes.
Commissioner Wyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Heberlin.
Yes.
Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our resolution approving the Region 7 Area Agency on Aging Multi-Year Plan. Someone would like to read that?
Whereas the said agency has developed the Region 7 Area Agency on Aging Multi-Year Plan, and the Board of Commissioners have reviewed the same, therefore be it resolved that the Sanilac County Board of Commissioners hereby agrees with the multi-year plan and further directs the Board of Commissioners Secretary to forward a copy of this resolution to the Region 7 Area Agency on Aging.
Okay, we have a resolution from Commissioner Wyatt. Is support, we have support from Commissioner Sarcella. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all roll call vote, Lauren.
Commissioner Black,
Yes.
Commissioner Sarcella,
Yes.
Commissioner Ballard,
Yes.
Commissioner Wyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Heberlin.
Yes.
Resolution is carried. Thank you. At this time, we'll move on to committee reports, and we will start with Commissioner Wyatt.
Policy and personnel met. Policy reviewed the policies that you'll be reviewing, we'll be approving later. So we'll go over that when that time comes. And personnel met today about a couple of items of discussion, one being a temporary employee to be used at the clerk's office. So we're recommending that be done.
Okay.
Anything else, Gary?
No, we discussed a couple more. One was the requested allocation of cost for prosecutor's office, and we didn't table it, but we took it under consideration. And then the second one was the treasurer's office request to reduce half FTE. There needs to be more discussion on it and more input on it. So as that time comes, we'll alert the commissioners. That was a good meeting on all parts.
Yeah, actually, it was, we came to a pretty good understanding, both with the treasurer, thanks to her help, and the drain commissioner, thanks to his help. And of course, the clerk, who is on vacation, a working vacation right now.
And just a little more to that. I don't know if you want to discuss it. Doug has taken on a lot of extra work because of the gas lines going in and fiber optics, and it's created a lot more work, especially for his office and for Judy's office. So that's one of the reasons we're looking at down the road moving. Well, we would give her a temporary for now, and we're moving Angela over, and that's why she's looking for.
Gary,
Person.
now that you mentioned, Doug and the work he's done, he brought to our attention, and it's worth mentioning that his office has made it a point to collect the fees for the permits required to cross drains, which is translated into the road commission doing the same. You and Gary work with the road commission about those permitting. And rather than just kind of like letting it happen as it happens and deal with the fallout later on, Doug's department has implemented hiring out and having engineers and an inspector at those sites when those drains are traversed for the purpose of making sure that they were done properly and correctly, as opposed to in the past when that hasn't necessarily been the case. And there's been fallout and costs that the county has had to absorb. And of course, when we're talking about that, we're talking about taxpayer money. So they're putting that on those companies that are doing the work to pay up front the required cost to make sure that they're doing the work properly. Yeah, and it's a big deal because you're making them accountable for the work they're doing. I'm glad he's doing that.
Well, that's good to hear.
And that put a lot of extra work on both the offices. And I think what I got from it, maybe you think different. I thought both Trudy and Doug Kane, they've been very proactive on how to generate, to cover the costs, and it does cause us extra work. So I thought they're everything was legit.
Yeah, it's a problem. I know that when you pull permits and the associated costs seems like bureaucratic nonsense, red tape baloney. But really, when you're dealing with for-profit companies, they're looking to get things done as fast as possible. And maybe there's an occasion that corners are cut, and it's to the detriment of the taxpayers when that happens, because later on, the repairs that need to be done to county infrastructure are borne on the cost of taxpayers. So I'm really glad that he's putting that effort into making sure it's done properly. We don't do that enough, I feel.
Okay. Very good. Anything else in your committee report, Commissioner Wise?
Not from me, sir.
Okay, thank you. Roger?
I attended the Michigan Works meeting in Lapeer on the 10th of June. That's a region-wide board I'm on. Michigan Works they work their tails off there trying to get people employed and offer opportunities for them and assistance. And it's something that needs to be seen more of, because you hear people that don't want a job or they say they can't find a job. There's jobs out there, many of them. Attended the policy committee, as Joel related to, and that'll be discussed here later. Attended a CMH annual orientation on the 23rd, June meeting on the 28th, the monthly meeting, and I had a policy or a program committee meeting this morning. DTF was on 6/13, and Parks, we had a buildings and grounds committee. We are looking into, there are some grant opportunities coming from the DNR. They're going to have $65 million in grant funding. The maximum amount would be $1 million. So we're looking into possibly beginning some development at Delaware Park if we can come up with some match. We don't need match money, but you have a much better opportunity to get the grant if you do match the whatever you're asking for. So we're beginning some work on that. And that's it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I myself, we had a medical control meeting last week. There's some discussion of pay raises. We decided that we needed to have an in-person meeting to discuss that. We're waiting for that to happen. And then also this morning, Roger and I met with our medical care facility consultant, and we continue to move forward with that project. That is all that I have. Commissioner Weaver?
Well, I think Joel and I's already covered our personnel meeting this morning. Later on this afternoon tonight. The creation committee.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Bill?
No committee reports at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that brings us into unfinished business. We have the resolution urging state legislature to amend the Michigan Auto Insurance Reform Act to address a reimbursement cap for auto accident victims. This resolution has been read before, but I would ask that one commissioner reread it for everyone who is here to hear, and then we can have discussion.
Resolution urging state legislature to amend the Michigan Auto Insurance Reform Act to amend the reimbursement cap for auto accident victims and home health care. Whereas the Michigan No Fault Insurance Reform Act of 2019 introduced a fee cap, which took a final effect July 1st, 2021. This cap sets percentage limits on how much residential care facilities, home health care providers, and other persons can be reimbursed for providing treatment care to auto accident victims. And whereas the reimbursement caps are 55% of the reimbursement rates that home care providers were collecting in 2019. Whereas 55% of a home health care provider's 2019 collections is an unsustainable reimbursement cap to continue caring for catastrophically injured individuals following an auto accident. And now therefore be it resolved that Sand Lake County Board of Commissioners hereby urges the Michigan legislature to amend the Michigan No Fault Auto Insurance Reform Act to address the sustainable cap fee. Example, Michigan Workman's Compensation Fee Cap for ancillary services for home health care providers in order to uphold these benefits that have been paid for by the survivors who are currently receiving and who will receive in-home long-term care when purchasing an unlimited PIP auto insurance policy paid by the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association. Be it further resolved that the Sand Lake County Clerk is requested to forward copies of the adopted resolution to the Governor of the State of Michigan, the Senate, State Senate Majority and Minority Leaders, the State House Speaker and Minority Leader, the members of the Sand Lake County Delegation to the Michigan Legislature, and the other 82 counties of Michigan as Commissioner. Correspondence this 5th day of July 2022.
Okay, we have a resolution from Commissioner Sarkella. Is there support for that resolution? Support. We have support from Commissioner Heberling. Discussion.
Yeah, there's been lots of discussion. I'd like to hear from Commissioner Wyatt. Again, Commissioner Wyatt and I discussed in the conference room before the meeting. And one of the questions that I asked, I know no resolution is perfect and no law is perfect. There's good and bad about both. And sometimes, hopefully, there's always more good and bad. But if we decided to pass this resolution, is it do more good to constituents and taxpayers and citizens of Michigan, and only a few are not touched? I know, I'd like to hear your story. You don't need to know by name people you taught, but I'd like the rest of us to hear. You had a discussion this past weekend, I believe.
Well, myself, like other commissioners, probably did a little bit of research on it. You know, we don't have the avenues to reach deep, do a deep drill on it necessarily, but just based on what Brian had said previously and today again, and from what I've talked with a couple of insurance brokers and others who actually are affected by this, you know, he mentioned the fact that that these individuals have already paid it and through auto owners insurance are having their that percentage reduced and thus not being able to qualify or receive home health care. And the fact is that that's across the board. We all paid for it since 1977. We've all paid equally, right? Some people have had the unfortunate circumstances to have to draw from it, but we've all paid for it. And we all know that the Michigan's insurance is the most costliest in the union. And this is a direct reason, one of the direct reasons why. And we all know that we received money back recently because of that, the overabundance of funding in that particular catastrophic claim fund. It says here in the second paragraph, reimbursement caps are 55% of the reimbursement rates that home care providers were collecting in 2019. Now, I can tell you, I do know people who have worked in this industry since the 80s. And there is an egregious amount of overcharging when you have auto insurance for an injury. When you show up at the hospital and you say you fell out of your tree in your backyard or at the park or something, you don't get nearly the kind of testing you do if you had an automotive accident, because it's a big fund of money that they grab from without any restrictions. Could it possibly be that the funding received for the reimbursement rates for these home healthcare agencies was more than what was reasonable? Possibly. I imagine our legislature looked into that and considered that when they made a cap on that. I don't think that this will leave a void in service providers. I think what it's going to do is shake up service providers to become more efficient, because they no longer have that large reimbursement amount that they can grab from to fund their process. They're going to have to start doing like the rest of us have to do and budget money accordingly for efficiency purposes and to streamline their organization. I realized during this interim, it seems like some people may no longer have access to the kind of care that they were used to. But as Brian had said in the previous message, whereby they would be, brought and have to go to a medical care facility or something like that. Well, that's where any one of us would have to go if we had a catastrophic injury in our backyard, again, at the park, or maybe even at work, because we don't have access to that huge amount of money that the catastrophic claims fund had access to. I feel like this is a benefit for taxpayers as a whole, but specifically automotive insurance payers to reduce their premiums. I feel it's a benefit because it gives us the choice to either get into this catastrophic PIP fund or not, and to what extent we do get into it. I don't agree with supporting this particular measure.
Okay. Any further discussion on this resolution?
So whether we, yeah, I do have one more, sorry. So whether we pass this or don't pass it, it is not going to change the law, right?
Correct. This is simply if the Board of Commissioners was to pass this, it is presumed that St. Lake County advocates for the legislative branch of our state government to go back and revisit this particular aspect of the insurance or the law that they changed. I guess I would be of the argument, 55%, that's a pretty drastic change. And I wonder if it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction to try to, the end goal was to reduce the cost of auto insurance in this state. But did they go a little bit too far? Do they need to revisit it to make sure that people can be taken care of? It's difficult because, as Commissioner Wyatt alluded to, it's hard for any of us to fully understand and dive into this issue completely. So
It's a resolution to encourage them to take a look at it.
correct. Yeah, that I would agree with your assessment, Commissioner Sarkella.
I guess that was the answer.
Yeah, we're asking them to review it. So there's no further discussion.
Well, it's not an agreement to look at it. It actually says urges the Michigan legislature to amend it. So that's part of amendment would be to look at it, but it's not just simply to. We're actually saying, we agree that you went too far, too deep, and you should change that.
So what if you change the word amend to review?
Yeah. Let's just see. To review the Michigan, to address the substance of receiving, purchase. Yep, I'm good with that.
Okay, so Commissioner Sarkella, you read the resolution. Would you be willing to accept a friendly amendment to change the word amend in the fourth paragraph to review, urging the legislature to review the No Fault Auto Insurance Reform Act?
Yes.
Okay, Bill accepts that friendly amendment. Who supported this? Roger, you did, correct?
Yeah.
You accept that as well?
Yep.
Okay, so we have an amended resolution as read.
No, actually, Gary.
I supported it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Gary,
Just waiting for you to come around.
okay.
I do.
Okay, so we have a motion and support to approve a amended resolution urging the state legislator, which we need to change the title also to review, right? Because it says amend. So we have this amended resolution urging the state legislator to review the Michigan Auto Insurance Reform Act to review the reimbursement cap for auto accident victims at home health care. Is there any further?
We want to change the title up above. to
Correct.
review.
Yep.
Yeah, so where it said amend in two places, it'll now say review.
2 places. Yep.
Yep.
Well done, John.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lori, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Black,
Yes.
Commissioner Sarkella,
Yes.
Commissioner Ballard,
Yes.
Commissioner Wyatt,
Yes.
Commissioner Heberlein.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted. Moving on to new business. We will. I think it just had some feedback there. Start with FA-099-22, approval of current claims.
Allen County Board of Commissioners hereby approves the payment of current claims for 2022 identified on the accounts payable reported dated June 28, 2022 for the general bank account in the amount of $276,813.12.
Support.
We have a motion from Finance Chairman Sarkella, support from Commissioner Ballard. Is there any discussion on the topic? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to FA-100-22, budget adoptions, amendments, appropriations, and transfers.
Santa Ana County Board of Commissioners hereby approves the following budget amendments and establishes the following accounts as listed.
We have a motion. Is there support? We have a motion from Commissioner Sarkella, support from Commissioner Heberlein. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to FA-101-22, approval of worksite agreement, animal control.
Santa Ana County Board of Commissioners hereby approves the Work Experience Program 2022/2023 Worksite Agreement between the County of Sanilac and GST Michigan Works for immediate approval and further authorize the board chairman to sign the necessary agreement.
We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella, support from Commissioner Ballard. Is there any discussion on the topic? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to FA 102-22, award bid for building removal, buildings and grounds.
Sanilac County Board of Commissioners hereby awards and authorizes the demo of a fiberglass building located in Elmer Township by James Dean Construction LLC at a cost not to exceed $4,600 with funding from the 911 millage.
We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella, support from Commissioner Heberlein. Is there any discussion on the topic? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to FA 103-22, authorization to dispose of vehicle emergency management.
Sanilac County Board of Commissioners hereby authorizes the building ground supervisor to dispose of the emergency management 2004 Chevy Silverado, VIN number ending in 00762 through Albright Auction Service in Vassar, Michigan, with all proceeds to be deposited into emergency management budget.
We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella. Is there support? Support from Commissioner Ballard. Is there any discussion on the topic?
Yes. So I would suggest that the county consider reviewing the policy, which there is no policy, but whereby we sell county property from whatever the department is, and it goes back into that department's budget. But rather, we sell county property and it goes back into the general budget. When we put it back into the general budget, true, their revenue line or their budget doesn't increase to a commensurate rate that for the product that was sold. But I feel like it gives a better eye at the time of budget hearings to analyze what each department is using and what for. Quite often we get expenditures and they come out of this budget or that budget. And the answer is usually like, oh, I got plenty of money in the budget for it. Well, yeah, because you're always selling county property and putting it back in your budget. And it doesn't give you, particularly you, the opportunity, I feel, to properly analyze that budget for the sake of efficiency. I brought this up a couple of times over the last few years. And one of the reasons was, well, it all goes in, it's all the county's money, so it's all from the same pool. But other areas in fiscal management in the county, we have things separated from, discretionary, not discretionary, what's the term for, not disposable, but I forget the term, but basically the county's budget processed in through other departments' budget. And it just seems like it would be a tool valuable for you and Christie to look at and review how those departments are handling those budgets. I come from a community where that was done routinely. The emergency, or rather the various departments, fire, police, library, you name it, when those assets were sold, it went into the county's general budget. Now, as a department manager, I screamed about that because, hey, I want it to go into my budget because then I could spend it on whatever it is. And I don't have to make the case to the city council or anything like that. Now, true, they do present us any expenditure over $2,000, but quite often sitting in the seat when they tell me that, well, it's coming out of the equipment line of our budget, or it's coming out of whatever, we got the money for it. You don't really analyze it to see, is it really needed? Because you say, well, it's in the budget. But if it was coming from the general fund, it might be a little differently.
I think what you're suggesting could have an unintended consequence, and that is in the case of this vehicle, this was a grant that the emergency management went out and sought to obtain the vehicle. So if we tell departments that when they sell assets, it's going to go back in the general fund, are we telling our departments that, go out and find these grants, and then when you sell it, we're going to take the money back? Are we going to be disincentivizing our departments to go out and seek these opportunities to better their individual departments?
Well, that was one of the discussions and Commissioner Wyatt's right. We've had this discussion 3 or 4 times, and primarily with vehicles coming up for sale and buying new vehicles. One, vehicles go up 3% or more every year. Number 2 is if they get the grants for them, they do their homework and they put the effort into them, then, and this is part of the debate. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. That department will say, wait a minute, we did all the homework. We applied for the grants, we got the grants, and you're going to sell the vehicle, you're going to split the money up somewhere else in the general fund. I see that side of it. On the other side of it, if we continue to do that, like you said, it may disenfranchise some people. But I can understand other departments, they don't have cars to sell. they have copiers to sell that aren't worth anything, to put money back in. So
Right.
good debate. It's just, but I look at it, I guess, more so that, if they put this time into it, they get the grants, and then we just take the money and put it in the general budget. I don't know. It's a hot debate, I guess.
Well, that is one way of looking at it. However, I would argue that you've got the benefit of utilizing that piece of equipment for its entire serviceable life. So you're not being deprived of really anything. And again, we talked about this in a meeting whereby, oh, it's in the budget, I got to spend it, because if I don't, I'm going to lose it. And that concept, that understanding, that culture persists at every level of government spending, that if we don't use it, we're going to lose it. And that's just not true, because we're talking about taxpayer dollars. And so if you don't use it, ultimately that's taxpayer dollars that may not have to be increased through millage increases or tax increases, because you've saved it and you've looked at it and said, rather than spending to what my budget I've allocated in my budget for, how about I spend less? How about I don't spend all of that? Now, I know there's departments here that have done a fantastic job of procuring equipment at the best price possible. And this is not anything against any department necessarily, but I feel it's another method that management could utilize as a way to change the cultural understanding of, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it, because it's still pervasive. And that's my dollars and your dollar that's being considered of, I got to blow your money or else I won't get it next year. And that's just not a good attitude to have. So I just wanted Nathan to be aware of that and to consider it. It may not be applicable in this particular situation, but I don't know what constraints the grant had, whether it had to be put back in emergency management or not. Typically, that's not the case, but it's just something that you should consider as you move forward.
Okay. Good discussion. Is there any further discussion?
Something that the emergency management fund is within the general fund. So that will be in the general fund.
Perfect. In this case, it's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's a good
Christy.
point. Thank you, Christy. Is there any further discussion related to FA 103-22? Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to FA 104-22, authorization to purchase printers and software information technology.
Santa Ana County Board of Commissioners hereby authorizes the Information Technology Director to purchase 22 print tech printers, including installation for the uniform services units from Procom Incorporated at a cost not to exceed $18,398. Further, to recommend authorizing the purchase of software and interface with public safety records from Tyler New World at a cost not to exceed $15,300 for immediate approval on both items with funding from the 911 millage.
Support. We have a motion from Commissioner Sarkella, support from Commissioner Ballard. Is there discussion on the topic?
Anybody here that can tell us what those are for? I mean, we were in the meeting when that was asked. You want-
Looks like Lieutenant Smith's son.
So
Yeah.
what I can explain, what this is these are the printers that are going to actually go in the police cars, so that when an officer's writing a ticket, they print that ticket out. That's for the person that's receiving the ticket. And then by getting this set up, it's going to make facilitating getting that information to the other departments within the county much faster and much easier.
It's part of the court's infrastructure too.
Yeah. And so this went through, we approved this. We knew this was coming for immediate approval because Lieutenant Smith is going to be looking out to try to get this is related to, there's some grant dollars and there's a timeline on it.
I think it's the citation software, the next one as well.
So that's a reason why that this is for immediate approval. Any further questions? We do, if he's here, he could answer, but
Well, he explained that in our last meeting.
Correct.
Via Teleton.
so.
Good, thanks.
Good, okay. Any further discussion related to FA 104-22? Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to FA 105-22, authorization to purchase citation software.
Santa Ana County Board of Commissioners hereby authorizes the purchase of the LexisNexis e-citation software and the annual support and maintenance at a total cost not to exceed $20,636 with reimbursement from the Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental Funding Grant.
We have a motion from Commissioner Sarkella, support from Commissioner Heberlin. Is there discussion on the topic? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to NFA 026-22, acceptance of 2021 Veterans Affairs Annual Report.
Sanilac County Board of Commissioners hereby accepts the Veterans Affairs 2021 Annual Report as presented.
Support.
We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella, support from Commissioner Ballard. Is there any discussion on the topic? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to NFA 027-22, approval of letter of support.
Sanilac County Board of Commissioners hereby approves the following letter of support for the proposed grant application for Highline to serve Sanilac County.
We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella. We have support from Commissioner Heberlin. Is there any discussion on this topic? So this is a letter of support for Highline to seek grant funding from the state and that we would be supportive of that. If anybody had a chance to read it.
Yeah, I mean, some of it's kind of, well, as we discussed before, it's, hey, we're a great company, we're gonna kill it, and we want you to subscribe to us, because it's not the only game in town necessarily, but I don't know, do you think that this letter seems to suggest that it's the only game in town and the best game in town? I feel like there's an element of that for sure. Because there's other providers, and there's some that make their home in Sanilac County, and we are essentially rallying behind one private company.
That one private company that's going to be serving about 75% of the land mass of this county.
Well, 75% of the land mass of this county is already being served by providers, but they're wireless, and maybe they're not as good. It's still a product that's being sold. Currently, there is a product being sold by a couple of different providers. And I'm a little concerned that what we're doing is we're saying, hey, this is the one you should go with. Now, granted, fiber is preferable over wireless in most applications. I agree with that. But again, it's a guy selling stuff, and we're saying this is the guy you should buy it from.
So what you're saying, Commissioner Wyatt, we're taking sides with one.
It could be seen that way, absolutely,
It could be, but we're in a very unique situation with some very extreme constraints. If it was feasible for a company to come in and provide fiber level internet to people in this community at a profit, it would have been done a long time ago.
Oh, 100% sure.
It's not feasible.
It's our tax dollars that's bringing this about.
Correct.
Absolutely.
No different than the electrification of the thumb when that happened. They required tax dollars for that to happen. So I see this as a company that, through the work of the Board of Commissioners previously with our broadband committee, doing our whatever efforts we can to try to bring broadband into the county. We've made a lot of headway with that. I get the concept of one company, but this is a company that's doing a lot of work in the community, and they're seeking grant dollars to do more. I don't see any other companies out here asking.
Yeah, they were awarded this work through federal funding. They were off funding.
Right.
They won an auction.
Yeah.
So they won the reverse auction under a different name, AEG. So did Mercury, and so did Thumb Electric. Now, if what you're saying is Thumb Electric haven't asked us to do so, and we would be willing to do so, the same would go with any of the wireless providers that we would, if they had grant opportunities that required us to give a letter of support, we would do so. I'm fine with that. If we're willing to give a letter of support to any private company that wants us to say their stuff is great, but I feel a little bit like
within the purview of broadband internet.
Yeah.
Let's not leave it so open-ended.
well, I mean,
They can give
that's
us the support they say they're going to, which satellite can't do right now.
yeah, you got Elon Musk's adventure out there that will soon be, applicable to this very area as well. I personally would like to give a letter of support for that, from the powerful podium of the Sanilac County Board of Commissioners. So I don't know. I'm a little sketchy on this. It feels like we're doing a solid favor for a private company, at least the way it's written like this. It seems like an infomercial, John.
I get that. I get that you could view it that way. I look at it as an opportunity for us to advocate.
There goes the warhol.
Moving. America.
We requested that flyby, by the way.
Happy 4th of July. when you-
That's right. No way. Well, I could do something that sounds less infomercial than this. This is, I'm not good with that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on this letter? Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye. Opposed?
Me.
Motion is carried. Moving on to NFA 028-22, adoption of amendment to the holiday policy.
Sand Lake County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts the amendment to the following policy.
Support. We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella, support from Commissioner Ballard. Is there discussion? Looks as though holiday policy is not highlighted, but it should be pretty clear here, right, that this is the addition of Juneteenth into the actual fiscal policy.
Yeah, nothing was added. It was just subtracted from that first paragraph of this.
Okay, so that's the only change.
Yeah, the highlighted stuff will be added.
There was the one other piece where employees no longer had to have the 90 calendar days of service
Okay, good.
before being eligible for a holiday.
Strike out. That's
Okay, I see that here now.
subtracted, not added.
Any further discussion on NFA 028-22?
No, I just will say that I talked to some of our county employees are happy with this June 19th
Okay.
because this years past, there's been some things taken away.
Okay.
So it's going to meet up for it.
Well, good. All right, anything further? Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. We will now move on to NFA 029-22, adoption of amendment to the donation leave time policy.
Sand Lake County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts the amendment to the following policy.
Support. We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella, support from Commissioner Ballard. Discussion. This is changing the amount of days that can be given from 30 to 45 days.
Correct.
Any further discussion related to NFA 029-22? Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to NFA 030-22, adoption of amendment to the personal leave policy.
Sand Lake County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts the amendment to the following policy.
We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella. Is there support? Support. We have support from Commissioner Ballard. Discussion. This was an adjustment to the 90-day probationary period, making group 5 sick days to personal days. So they have an opportunity to have a little bit of time within their first year in the effort to improve recruitment and retention.
There you go.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Moving on to NFA 031-22, adoption of amendment to longevity policy.
Sand Lake County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts the amendment to the following policy.
Support. We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella, support from Commissioner Ballard. Is there discussion? So this is the addition of one tier of longevity for employees that are here between 10 and 14 years, and it is for a total of $250. Again, this is for the purpose of recruitment and retention. Is there any further discussion on the topic? Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Moving on to NFA 032-22, adoption of amendment to the vacation policy.
Sand Lake County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts the amendment to the following policy.
We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella, support from Commissioner Heberlein. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Moving on to NFA 033-22, adoption of amendment to the health insurance policy.
Sand Lake County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts the amendment to the following policy.
We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella. Is there support? We have support from Commissioner Ballard. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Moving on to NFA 034-22, adoption of amendment to the sick leave benefit policy.
Sand Lake County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts the amendment to the following policy.
Support. We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella, support from Commissioner Heberlein. Is there discussion on the topic? Hearing none, all in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion is carried. Moving on to NFA 035-22, adoption of amendment to the travel conference policy.
Sanilac County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts the amendment to the following policy.
Support.
We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella, support from Commissioner Ballard. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to NFA 036-22, adoption of amendment to the remote participation policy.
Sanilac County Board of Commissioners hereby adopts the amendment to the following policy.
Support.
We have a motion from Commissioner Sarcella, support from Commissioner Ballard. Is there discussion? This brings our remote participation policy in line with the OMA, I take it? Correct. Any further discussion on the topic? Hearing none, all in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
The good news is we continue with Zoom meetings like we are, where the audience can participate from a remote location. This just precludes us from doing so.
Very good. Okay, at this time, I'm going to open it up to general public comments. Are there any general public comments today? Sure.
As you're aware that the school board here in Sandusky wants to change our name. And the residents, majority of the residents don't want it. And we've asked the school board to, and I don't know if this even, if you can even help me with this issue, but it was brought up at the school board meeting back in January that we put on the public ballot and the citizens decide. And the president of the school board says, no, it's not. It's not up to you, it's up to us. To me, we put them on that board, they should be doing what we want. And they led us to believe, the Sandusky residents, that there was a grant that was going to pay for this name change. Well, come to find out, there is no grant, but they're still going to go ahead with it anyways. I'm asking, what is the citizens, and it was quite a turnout last Monday at the school board meeting too. I get on the phone, Facebook, everything. I mean, taxpayer people need to be, alumni people need to be going there, which they did. It was so full, they couldn't even get in the room. And we asked to move down to the cafeteria where we were in January so that people could be more comfortable. There was standing room. And he was there and seen the meeting too. But they refused to do that because they want to make it very uncomfortable for the citizens of Sandusky, so they won't come back. I'm asking, what can we do as citizens to put a stop to this? Because we don't want it. We are not going to pay for this. Even the what do you call that? The boosters was there, a member of that, and said, we have donated $1 million to this school with the Sandusky Redskin paraphernalia, like the chairs this football players sit on, Cokes, warmers. What are you gonna do with all that stuff? Just take it out in the back and burn it? They said, don't ask for another penny from the boosters, no more to support this school. Now, us citizens are telling our school board we don't want it. So what can we do as citizens of Sandusky that our kids go to that school and put a stop to this? Because they seem to think they run the school and they get to do what they want.
So I appreciate you being here and sharing your concerns with us. The Board of Commissioners has absolutely nothing to do with the operation of Sandusky schools. That's why you have a school board. They are elected officials, similarly to we are. They have terms. School board members serve between a 4 and a 6 year term. And that should all be handled at the school. It's no way related to anything that we do.
Okay.
So I appreciate your concerns. I understand your concerns, but those concerns should be vetted at a school board meeting.
Which we do. I mean, there's been several meetings and I said, we're just gonna have to keep filling that school board up every meeting and maybe have to take legal action then. Because they're not listening to us. They have a plan to do this and they lied to us. They said they had the money. Why? And then Paul Rich came, the sheriff's department, and he said he was just at a meeting and said, the school board better be putting their money on protecting our schools because it's coming to our communities. Our money, which can be better spent on securing our school than changing a stupid name that's been here since this school was built.
I understand.
And I'm asking for you, like, if you have to talk to your citizens in your counties, to tell them, please come to the parent or the school board meetings. it's in numbers, talks.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate your concerns and I appreciate coming to speak to us about it, but unfortunately, we are completely separated.
Separate,
It's
okay.
completely separate. We don't have any authority to tell them what to do. And again, for me, as a person who took the time out of my day to run and be part of this office, I would hate for someone in another entity of government to try to tell me what I was going to do here. I wouldn't do that to the Board of Education in Sandusky. So we all serve different districts. Sandusky happens to be is it your district? In Gary's district. I mean, I'd happily have a conversation with you after the meeting if provide a little bit more feedback about how school boards operate. But as far as this board having any input or any involvement in it, it's not for us to decide or be part of.
But I didn't know if you could give me any, you probably can't give me advice either, but
Yeah, I mean,
talk
it's,
to, I guess, talk to the people in the community, you know, you guys go out and talk amongst your members and, you know, have them attend our school board meetings.
The best thing you can do is get as many people from the district, because they're the ones that have the voice. Nobody from out of your district would have any kind of say,
and you're,
unfortunately.
in your school district, you know, there's a line and you could get a map of that boundary, and that is the Sandusky School District. And that is where every member of your board of education is from that area. The school, the kids that go to your school, unless you're a school of choice child, are within that boundary. And your voters, the people that have the opportunity to vote on school related issues, whether it be a millage issue or voting for board members, are within that boundary.
We're not, we've asked to put it on a ballot and she goes, we're not doing that, because then they know it will get turned down.
Well, that's for them to decide, I suppose.
Okay.
So I wish I had something more I can tell you, but unfortunately,
No,
it's just,
I never was involved in politics ever in my life till the last 2 years when this whole world's going the heck in a handbag real fast. And it's like, you know, people in the community got to start getting involved or we're losing our rights every day.
it has certainly been an interesting couple of years.
Well, thank you for your time and listening to me.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for being here.
I just have a question. Now, if Sandusky School is in the city limits, would Brett Lester and the city police have any at
Again,
all, or you don't know?
we have no purview over that. We're here to run Sanilac County policy and budget. That's what we do here. To get involved, we do not get involved in the school. We do not get involved in the city affairs. That would be a city of
But
Sandusky.
the local, they could, correct? The local board,
Every entity of government has elected officials. The city of Sandusky has elected council members. The school board the school has elected members. And if your issue is with the school, it is those school board members that you need to have that conversation with. If you have a concern or a question related to the city of Sandusky, I would encourage you to talk to Dave Faber, who is the city manager. And if he can't answer your question, I'm sure he could refer you to some council members that could answer your question.
Thank you.
I'll have a public comment. You know, Commissioner Block is being polite and delicate, but there is an answer. You vote them out, right? You tell them that you're going to vote them out. You present to them the idea that they are not doing what the representation, they are not being representative of the entire community. But unfortunately, the whole purpose of an elected representative for a community, whether it's federal level, state level, local level, is so that they can make those decisions. You're trusting those individuals that you vote for to make decisions exactly like that, good or bad. And you'll pay the bill, good or bad, in the time coming when they make those decisions. You don't have a ballot initiative on every little thing that we do. Here we got these documents and we're voting for it. Can you imagine if we had to put this on a ballot for everything? It doesn't really work that way, which goes to, like you said, except for the last 2 years, you were never involved. Well, you're not in the minority. That's the majority of us Americans. We just celebrated the 4th of July. Right, where men put their lives and their families' lives on the line for speaking on the value of independence as a nation and autonomy from Great Britain. And we have it really easy here. We've never been forced to, rather, I should put it this way, and I think it's worth saying, even though I'm blathering on. What a wonderful opportunity we have to even vote people in, to even be able to assemble at a meeting like that. There's a lot of countries in this world that don't allow you to do that, or you end up finding your house burned to the ground the next day. You know, the Board of Education across this country have been on fire with meetings for a variety of purposes, and they have to continue to be so. You have to hold them accountable. Demand to know their contact information. I'm in the Croslex School District. Can't find out any contact information for these people. It has to go metered through the Board of Education's website. Otherwise, you can't contact them and have a conversation with them. It's problematic, and nothing will change until you show up at these meetings and promise them that they will be voted out. But that promise has to be met with somebody of your representation actually running, you know, and actually going out there and talking to people and campaigning.
Can I say one more thing? I did get some information from a person that's running for Congress. She said for me to file for a complaint with a motion for an injunction. That puts a stop order and it goes in front of the judge.
Yeah, that's you taking legal action against them, 100%. You remember, that's your right as an American. You can file for that anytime you want against anything. If you've got the money and you're willing to find a lawyer that's willing to represent you, you can follow up with that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just was wondering.
Yep. We're here to help as much as we possibly can. Some things aren't within our purview.
Darn.
And Commissioner White, yes, I was being polite. You made some good, excellent points. And it really is, that's probably why these gentlemen sit here. They're taking an active approach to be involved in the community. They were concerned about a decision that was made, or they felt that they can make good decisions. So we take time to be here to make those decisions. And that goes for elected officials across our area. Lots of school board members there for the right reasons, trying to do the right thing.
Yep.
But if they're not doing what the community wants, it's the community's job to let them know that and work with them about that.
That's what we're doing. We're piling that school board meetings.
And that is our form of representative government. And we elect representatives, and you are there to let them know that you are unhappy with what they were doing. So. Are there any other public comments today? Hearing none, we will move on. We have no closed session today, but we do have an approval of our closed session minutes from June 21st. I would entertain a motion to approve the closed session minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion from Commissioner Ballard. Is there support? We have support from Commissioner Heberlein. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Our meeting minutes are approved. If there is nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn today's meeting.
So moved.
Support. Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Sarkella, support from Commissioner Heberlein. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 2:12.